Let's start.
So, uh, so today we are going to discuss about atrial septal defects. So the basically atrial septum is the septal part which divides the left ventricular outflow tract and the right atrium. So this malformation leads to communication between the right atrium and the left ventricular outflow tract. So it can be a AV septal defects, can be a partial defects, or can be complete defects. So
Hello.
so if it is not going well.
क्या हुआ वामसी?
Vamsi, can you hear? Is Vamsi there? Hello.
हाँ वामसी इज देयर. आई थिंक उसका कुछ वो खराब हो गया, माइक्रोफोन या पता नहीं क्या. He has left the meeting. I think he will rejoin.
पीपीटी नहीं मिल रहा एक्चुअली, इसलिए मैं अभी ज्वाइन कर लेंगे. एक्चुअली अभी दिख रहा है स्क्रीन?
हाँ दिख रहा है. फुल स्क्रीन करेंट स्टार्ट.
Is not moving in full screen. इसी screen पे you can click the next.
So it can be a simple only ostium primum type of ASD in which the ventral septum is intact with a common AV valve, or it can be a simple only AV canal VSD, or it can be mixed like both ostium primum ASD and also there will be a VSD. So the AV ring, atrial valve ring, it will be floating between the two septum. So this is called a complete AV canal defect. So any atrial defect has some features. One is there should be one common AV ring, and it should have a 5-leaflet valve that guards the common AV orifice, and an unwedged outflow tract, and aortic valve that is anterior superior to the common AV junction. And the LV mass is characterized by the distance between the apex and aortic valve will be longer when compared to the distance between the atrial valve and the apex. It means so. Actually, yes. It means that this distance is larger when compared to this distance. This is the AV valve area. So this is smaller and this is larger, and the LV outflow usually is elongated. And there should be one common AV valve, and it is usually 5-leaflet valve, and there will be a cleft in the anterior mitral leaflet, and this right anterior superior leaflet and the right inferior leaflet. This is completely dedicated to right ventricle, and left lateral leaflet, this is completely dedicated to left ventricle. Whereas the posterior bridging leaflet and anterior bridging leaflet, it is in between the both and right and left ventricles. So there can be a ventricular septum between the both, or like this, or there may not be any ventricular septum. So if the ventricular septum is present, that is if the AV wall ring is attaching to the crest of the ventral septum, so it forms two cavities, that is right ventricular cavity and left ventricular cavity. If it doesn't have attaching the crest, it forms a single cavity like this. And due to the anterior movement of the left ventricular outflow tract, and the outflow tract is usually become narrow and it is elongated. So this deformity is called gooseneck deformity. And this you can see a small cleft in here. So this is the clefted anterior metal wall, which is divided into anterior and posterior bridging wall. And this can be a competent wall, or this can be an incompetent wall. So there can be a regurgitation, may be present or may not be present.
So what are the components of a gooseneck deformity? What are the causes where there will be an elongated left ventricular outflow tract in case of AVSD? What all causes obstruction? Left ventricular outflow tract.
Basically, due to pushing of the lateral outflow tract, so either it can be in a papillary muscle, or it can be any quadridentia. It can be the fibrous crest, which is pushing the aorta anteriorly. So it also causes
Can be a
subaortic
fibromuscular crest. Okay. What else? What did you say?
a fibromuscular crest, or quadrate tendon, or axillary papillary muscle.
Or a crest of the ventricular septum, or caudal tissue, or abnormal insertion of the anterior papillary muscle can come into this way. ना अगर वो anterior आ गई तो anterior outflow के बीच में आ जाएगी. Or there can be a thickness of the outflow tract which is there. So these are all the causes of left ventricular outflow tract. Yeah, you have written it.
So it can be.
You must be aware कि अपने किसी भी AV canal में particularly partial AV canal defect है, you always see the left ventricular outflow tract to decide कि ये obstruction है तो किस वजह से है. Not just the length. There can be you should be aware कि कहाँ हो सकती है. Even papillary muscle orientation is very important for assessing the AV canal.
It can be an immobile ridge of the crest of the ventral septum, or it can be an axillary caudal tissue arising from the AV wall leaflet, and that is fixed to the ventral septum itself. Or there can be an axillary.
What is the consequence? Suppose LVOT है, LVOTO है, उसकी वजह से hemodynamically क्या फर्क पड़ेगा?
Cardiac output will decrease because subaortic obstruction may cause करेगा sir. So the output will be decreased one, and there can be increased left to right shunting across the VSD, or there can be increased AV valve regurgitation because of subaortic obstruction.
Both left to right shunt and AV valve regurgitation gets exaggerated whenever there is a left ventricular outflow tract obstruction. This is important.
So the relationship of a bridging nucleus to the adjacent ventral septum and to the atrial septum determines the level of shunting across the AV septum defect. So the bridging nucleus can be adhered to the ventral septum, then it leads to only atrial shunting. The term ostium primum ASD doesn't actually characterize this type of AV communication, because when it's a defect in atrial septum, which is it is not a defect in atrial septum. It is due to absence of AV septum, due to no development of AV septum. When the bridging defects are attached to the atrial septum, then shunting will be at the level of a ventricle, that is due to VSD. So this VSD is an inlet VSD, and if the bridging defects are free floating, so then the communication will be both at the atrial level and at the ventricle level. Same thing as the unwedged elongated ventricle is due to because of the anterior septum position leads to this gooseneck deformity. This one this is the elongated left leg outward tract causing the gooseneck deformity. And the papillary muscles can be abnormal arrangement, so it can either cause a parachute wall because of the close incision of the papillary muscles, but it can also cause a double orifice of the left ventricular inflow, leading to left to right shunts. And there is a LVOT obstruction, which also is referred in the AV valve regurgitation. A common AV valve annulus is shared by both RV and LV, and usually both the sides will be same. In some cases, there can be a decreased RV component because the RV right side component, because the RV can be hypoplastic, and in those cases, the tricuspid orifice usually overrides the malaligned inlet VSD, and there can be AV valve straddling also across the VSD. Whereas this can occur on the LV side also, but straddling does not occur on the left ventricle. So left ventricle can be small and morphos can be small. but straddling occurs usually on the right side only, and it is straddling occurs on left side when it is there is a conovertical malalignment. Then left side straddling can occur. So then,
previous line repeat करना, previous line between left and right. When the right component is small, RV is hypoplastic. Okay, the tricuspid orifice overrides the
Usually-
malaligned segment when there is a straddling. If the left component is small, the morphological LV is hypoplastic, but straddling does not occur despite AV malalignment because straddling is reserved for conoventricular malalignment. Basically, straddling is more common when the right sided is small.
right side is visible. Left side में common नहीं. Only when conoventrical area involved होता है तब malalignment होता है. When the AST defect is non-restrictive, so LA decompresses and it receives the regression flow from the left ventricle. And when the AST is restrictive, the clinical picture resembles like an isolated MR. And when there is a non-restrictive VSD, it leads to early development of the pulmonary vascular disease. And the physiological consequence of complete AV septal are the sum of both ASD and VSD. And there's the degree of left to right incompetence of the left and right AV valves.
For all practical purpose, ASD, primum ASD is generally not restrictive. It will always be a very large ASD. It will behave predominantly like a atrial septal defect. Okay. ASD, it is very rare to have a restrictive ASD in the case of AV canal defect. Okay, next.
So this is the LV angiogram. In this case, the AV valve is competent. So there is no AV registration. And in the second case, the AV valve is incompetent. So this LV is decompressing into right atrium in this case. Usually the atrium septum is the division between the left ventricle and right atrium. So when LV contracts, the flow is directed towards the right atrium. And in the same way, the murmur also is usually directed to the left lower sternal border and also sometimes to the right side lower sternal border also in severe cases. This is a chest X-ray. There is a gross enlargement of right atrium with increased pulmonary vascular markings due to increased pulmonary blood flow. And left ventricle can also be increased in size due to there is a significant left-sided wall regurgitation. And this is a LV angiogram which is showing the goose neck. This is LV output tract. And the most important association is Down syndrome. And in Down syndrome itself is a independent variable for propensity for VSD. Propensity for pulmonary vascular disease, and it doesn't depend on
What
the
are
size
the causes
of
of pulmonary vascular disease in case of Down syndrome? Enumerate 1, 2, 3, 4.
It is due to the decrease in 35% reduction in the number of alveoli and reduction in the radial alveolar count, which is the index of alveolar
Ye to
complex.
last up. First care. What is the first thing? Upper airways.
Upper airways.
There is a always look at their
Sleep apnea
faces.
and hyperventilation.
There is a
There
mid
is
facial
obstructive
region
sleep
is very
apnea.
small, so they are
Sleep
very
apnea
prone to
and
sleep apnea. So
Yes.
CO2 retention, that is what the first cause.
Yes.
Second cause is because their tongue fall is very frequent, no?
Yes.
Because tongue falls very commonly in them. So that is
So-
the second most important.
In one line, you can say upper airway obstruction.
Upper airway obstruction.
It can be upper airway obstruction. It
Causes
can
one
be
mid
pulmonary
facial.
hypoplasia.
The main difference is mid facial region hypoplasia. You cannot take care of much, but if there is a tongue fall, then you can suggest measures to take the. Especially in cats, you can put a upper airway or something. Put in an airway and take care of this. No? This is very important. So these are the two causes. And third is, of course, they have inherently less number of alveoli, so they are more
Yes.
predisposed to getting it. So these are the. And fourth is because of the underlying congenital heart disease, because invariably they are having a large VSD. So then it causes. Then it is more. That is why these are the 4 reasons of pulmonary artery hypertension in Downs. इसके अलावा कुछ बोलना है इन स्लाइड्स में?
कोई नहीं है सर, बस one upper airway and tongue fall and
Then we'll go to
this
the next slide.
alveolar reduction and alveolar
इतने बड़े
reduction
इसमें
leads to
कंफ्यूजन हो जाएगी. Let's go to the next one, history.
So coming to history, the heteroceptor defects are approximately same in case of males and females, and in case of trisomy 21, it is patient the females who are old at older age who become pregnant. So in those patients, the Down syndrome is more common, but it is shown that the father who has the extra chromosome rather than mother. And if a female with the Down syndrome becomes pregnant, the female with the atrial septal defect becomes pregnant, the chances of babies having congenital heart disease is around 9.6 to 14.3%. And in the same family, multiple members can be affected.
Vamsi, do you know of rule of 40 in Down syndrome? Hello. Have you read rule of 40 in Down syndrome? So 40% of patients of Down syndrome have congenital heart disease. Out of those, 40% have AVSD, and overall 40% patients of AVSD have Down syndrome.
50% of
It's 45 in Motion atoms.
Roughly, it's this. No, it's around 40.
I'm telling you, an exam.
Actually, rule of 40
45.
is very famous. You find in a lot of pediatric textbooks. So you must be aware of this. Yeah, it is 40, 45, roughly around this. But roughly you must know, no, 40%, 45% के आसपास होता है. That you should be aware.
The infant with the complete AV septal defects have development of CHF with the fetal height of within first 6 months of life. And in non-restrictive osteochondritis ASD, the chief determinant of the symptoms is left AV wall regurgitation. And when it is severe, it results to CHF, and mortality rate is 33% in the first year. When LV is hypoplastic, the neonatal CHF is intractable. In rare cases, there are exceptional cases where patients live up to one is 46 years and other is 73 years. And usually the adult survival is expected, normal adult survival, when the osteopenia ASD alone is present without with competent AV wall. There is no AV wall registration. So the 12% of patients reach or exceed the age of 60 years, but those who are beyond age of 45 years become symptomatic. And these symptoms deteriorate more when they develop atrial fibrillation or atrial flutter, because the right atrium enlarges out of proportion in this case in these patients. And when a VSD is the only component of AV septal defect, the history resembles other forms of isolated VSD of equal size. So the isolated left AV wall generates a murmur that is mistaken as a MR, which because murmur intensity is more at the apex region. And it
What will be the difference of the MR of a AV canal versus a MR of a non-AV canal? What is the difference?
It radiates to the, because in the atrial isthmus or anterior lip that is involved, so it radiates to the left sternal border, not to the axilla.
So one, as Ramila said, the MR of this IIR will be present right from birth. It generally has got an earlier presentation. And secondly, it is in the anterior cleft. So it will radiate anteriorly, unlike the acquired MRs, which radiate from the apex into the up to the sternum. This will radiate anteriorly along the it radiates anteriorly along the sternum, unlike the other MRs, which radiates onto the axilla.
The risk of infected endocarditis is less in patients who doesn't have the who has a competent AV wall. So the risk of infected endocarditis is, coincides with the degree of regurgitation. So the patient has a higher degree, has a higher risk. But as such, the patient who has a complete AV septal defects have with a competent wall has a low risk of infected endocarditis. The paradoxal embryo also is very rare because usually the clots will be found in the lower limbs and the pelvic veins, and this is blood is carried through the IVC, and usually IVC blood is directed to the mid part of the septum or the lower part. So the paradox number are rare, and the SVC bed is added towards the ostium primum into the left atrium, but the chance of formation of clots in the upper extremity is very less. So that's why the paradox number are less in case of primary type of ASD. And the spontaneous closure of enterocornular AV septal defect is uncommon and is attributed to the occlusion of tricuspid leaflet tissue that is derived from the bridging leaflets. Coming to Down syndrome. In Down syndrome, the morbidity and mortality is mainly depends upon the left alarmia and congenital anomalies of the GI tract and risk of hepatitis B. There can be multiple hematologic, endocrine, or immunologic disorders and premature atherosclerosis. Hematologic disorders can include either transient infantile myelodysplasia, red cell macrocytosis, and increased susceptibility to AML. And the patient who has age more than 35 years with Down syndrome, they usually have the neuropathology and neurochemical changes of Alzheimer's disease. That is early onset of Alzheimer's disease in these patients. And usually the brain weights of the Down syndrome are usually less when compared to the senile Alzheimer's disease, and most commonly affecting the anterior frontal and anterior temporal regions. However, despite this, the clinical dementia is uncommon, and this should be distinguished between the symptomatic hypothyroidism, because the hypothyroidism and the Down syndrome are more common association. And usually it is autoimmune thyroid dysfunction. Coming to physical appearance, so Down syndrome is the most distinctive type of appearance, which is associated with Davis and defect. So in these patients, the face is flat and broad, and cheeks are round, which are extended laterally. Eyes are obliquely placed, with the internal canthi are more distant from each other, and palpebral fissure will be very narrow. This will be thick and large with transverse fissures. Tongue will be long and thick with rough and
it is important that you make a write all the features of Down syndrome on one paper, and better is to make it from any other textbook. Use a pediatric textbook, no, as to what is the clinodictally, how common it is clinodically, uh, then the facial features, the eyes. Indian population, it is brushful spots are not very common, no, because we have got black eyes, but in Western population, because there is grayish tinge to them, then you can see those white spots in the periphery, so they can see white spots also. So also you have to, but you must be aware of all the physical features of Down syndrome that you should document, so that you put it up in your examination when you are doing it. Better to make a small note. All the features may not be there in Perloff, but make it from any pediatric textbook, or maybe Romila can share one slide of all the features of Down syndrome in percentage, and how many of them has got AML, and how many of them have this.
Okay, sir, I'll say.
So the incidence of Down syndrome is 1:809 births, but usually it is double, because half of the children, infants, half of the fetus with Down syndrome usually aborted within the during pregnancy itself. This spontaneous abortion occurs. And the incidence of CHD in Down syndrome is 50%, and the whereas in normal patients the incidence of CHD is
I think
0.4%.
this we have already discussed. You can jump. It is very important. Most of them are hypotonic. Their tone is very less. When you are examining a Downs, their tone would always be less. Particularly pediatrics, they learn all those things, hip displacement or all those Moro's absent, all of them, because of the hypotonia. And secondly, hypothyroidism. Features of hypothyroidism are again very important to be examined in case of Down syndrome. Whether the neck has to be examined to look for features of hypothyroidism. Okay, next.
And the AV septal defects accounts for 2/3 of the congenital heart disease in Down syndrome.
So Vamsi, whenever you are making these slides, no, you don't have to copy everything. You must understand what is relevant. No, so this we are doing for case presentation. Suppose there is a case of a patient with phenotypes of Down syndrome. What are the features we'd like to like? So yes, inner epicanthal folds. We should be looking at eyes. We should be looking at nose, depressed nasal bridge. We should be looking at tongue, which is very large. We should be looking at ears, which are placed slightly on the low. They have middle ear anomalies, which are very common. Then the neck, neck thyroid needs to be examined. Then hands, one needs to see the hands for kind of plenodactyly. Then coming to spine, you need to examine. Then hands also, yes, ulnar crease as you're showing, it needs to be examined. Their tone is generally low, so all these CNS reflexes are depressed. Everything you should be examining. As a case, you should know what all, a physical examination, all these features should be there. That is important.
So this is a person with a flattened nose, upturned the nose with a small changes with the inner inserting under the throat and enlarged tongue. And there is a sad faces type of the lateral margins of the mouth are rotated downwards, looking at the sad face. And in eyes, we look for brush filled spots, which are the white spots.
Don't use the word sad face because most of the time these are cheerful babies. In exam, if you are sad face, looking white sad face, they're cheerful babies. They're always happy. Brush filled spots you will not commonly see in the Indian population.
Indian population,
they are those white spots which you see in the iris. Yeah.
Brush filled spots, which is showing blue eyes or usually brown or black iris when it's not visible. And single palmar gaze and actional rotation of the hips as though it looks like an dislocated hips. So 90 degrees action rotation occurs at the hip level. Coming to the arterial pulse and the jugular venous pulse. So there can, if there is a severe left wall regurgitation, there can be a small water pulse to the direction of the larger left ventricular stroke volume. And in patients with AV canal septal defect with the CHF, the arterial pulse will be small because of failure.
So AV canal pulse, if there is a LVOTO or there is severe MR, can have a small volume pulse. Or as you heard it in the previous lecture, no? Actually, severe AV regurgitation, you can have features of a early water hammer pulse. In case of this, in JVP, the prominent wave would be a V wave because it and VY descent. In the case of severe MR, you with ASD, you must examine the JVP and also comment on the descents. Most of the time, descents are not commented. No? So, prominent V wave with prominent VY descent is suggestive of either TR or severe MR. But because in this particular case, with the pansystolic murmur radiating anteriorly, you will ultimately commit to an MR. Okay. Next.
Precordial palpation. Basically, it depends upon it is an isolated ostium primum ASD. So it is analogous to the same as ostium second ASD. There is RV impulse is felt with hyperdynamic RV. If there is a coexistent left ventricular AV wall regurgitation, then there is an LV impulse with the apical systolic fill, and this usually radiates to left tonal bladder because it is directed towards the right atrium. And when regurgitation is severe and internal communication is restricted, then a systolic expansion of left atrium can be seen, and this can be distinguished between the intrinsic RV impulse of the volume overload. Sometimes RV impulse can be confusing with the AV canal septal defect because of both volume and pressure overload. So the dilated right intercostal outflow tract generates an impulse in the third intercostal space, and enlarged pulmonary tract generates impulse in the second intercostal space. And the volume overloaded LV occupies the apex. So the thrill of the left AV wall regurgitation radiates towards the sternum, where it is indistinguishable on the thrills of the VSD or TR. So VSD mixes along with the AV regurgitation movement.
So what in precordial movement, what you are going to see, if it is a large primum ASD, all the features of ASD would be there. You cannot differentiate clinically a large ASD except for there are subtle findings on ECG which will come between a large ASD and a isolated primum ASD. Or there will be a features of, if there is a significant left apical regurgitation, then you will find left-sided features in the form of a murmur and a thrill at the apex. Okay, we'll go to the next slide.
Coming to osculation, so in an isolated non-distal primary ASD, the same osculations are analogous to the ostium secondary ASD. So if there is an AV wall regurgitation, then we can hear a holistic apical murmur that is heading towards the sternum, and sometimes up to the right sternum edge also. And there is a pulmonary mid-systolic murmur seen both in AV septal defect and ostium secondary ASD in the secondary process space with the white pixels splitting. And sometimes the pulmonary component is heard at the apex and mistaken for opening snap, which can originate in case of incomplete AV wall. And there can be a mid-diastolic murmur at the left sternal border caused with augmentation across the right AV wall. And
I think Gaurav is
How will you distinguish between the dilated LV impulse and the RV impulse?
hello.
Gaurav is asking, how will you differentiate RV impulse, right?
Yeah.
RV impulse from so
Go back to the previous slide.
Impulse.
with the AV canal defect.
Yes. They have also said that sometimes in cases of ASD,
How do you differentiate the RV impulse from LV impulse?
RV impulse with AVSD can be because of one lot of volume coming into the atria, and it is like a ASD. Pretricuspid shunt to RV is dilated. There is a large VSD, so pressure is also high on the right side. So, sorry, I didn't get the question. How will you differentiate what between what?
Sir, dilated LV impulse from a RV volume overloaded impulse.
Okay.
So his question is, in case you are getting a parasternal impulse, how will you differentiate whether it is coming from a RV or whether it is coming from a LA? So it is usually the question in exam is RV hypertrophy versus LA enlargement. So you can answer either way. How will you differentiate whether it is a RV impulse or a LA impulse?
Oh yes, yeah.
The impulse is a hyperkinetic impulse. And
Systolic, diastolic. Do you time it some way with cardiac cycle?
Sir, LA impulse is also due to the regurgitation of the LV, regurgitation murmur. It also occurs in systole, and RV impulse also occurs in systole.
How will you differentiate?
Both in systole, due to RV contraction, it occurs, RV hyperkinetic occurs, and due to AV regurgitation, this LA impulse occurs.
Clinically, how will you say it is coming from LA or it is coming from RV? That is the question. What would you like to take this? How would you differentiate that this parasternal impulse which you are seeing is coming from LA or it is coming from?
Sir, if the impulse, if you see the RV parasternal impulse and the apex, if both are coinciding, then it should be RV or ventricular.
Parasternal impulse and the apical impulse.
Yes, sir.
One, if it is present at the apex, and if it is present in the parasternal area, then you attribute it to the RV because RV is dilated, and in this particular case, it is going to find the apex. Okay. What else? And LA can never come at the apex. Okay. What else?
And type of apex. If apex is RV apex, then it is adjutor.
सर आई थिंक डायस्टोलिक कंपोनेंट भी होगा एलए इंपल्स का, तो अगर हम कैरोटिड से टाइम करेंगे
LA भी अच्छी impulse इसलिए आते हैं due to LV contraction regurgitation.
Impulse can never cause grade 3 parasternal heave. Grade 3 parasternal heave will always be a pressure overload of the RV.
Right.
In most of these cases, it is very RVH is significant, and always you will get a significant parasternal heave, which can never be there in a LA. So to attribute की parasternal heave LA की वजह से मिल रही है, one should be very you will get a parasternal impulse. You will generally not get a parasternal heave. or it will be at the most a grade 1 parasternal heave. While parasternal heave of these are always grade 2 or grade 3 because RV pressures are systemic.
Yeah. But your epigastric pulsations associated with it.
Then you have to see the features of other features of RV hypertrophy. That
Yes.
means you have to see one epigastric. As Gaurav is saying, you will look for epigastric pulsations. Then you have to look for liver pulsations. You have to see other features of left valve regurgitation. Like you have to see the murmur radiation.